The entry to America's towns has long been accompanied by signs with slogans touting the achievements you might find within. In one town, situated at the end of the Erie Canal and the prolific Niagara Falls, you wouldn't be surprised to see a different kind of greeting. Here lies Buffalo, the most cursed city in professional sports history. This is what you don't know about the curse of Buffalo. Welcome to What You Don't Know About Sports, where we delve into the forgotten stories, teams, and athletes of sports history and question widely held takes on today's sports. I'm Matt, and this is Blake.
Hello.
And today we have our first look at curses in sports, and we're going to be able to tell you the horrible history of Buffalo's professional sports teams. But first, Blake, what's your favorite sports curse or anomaly or weirdness?
So if the first one that comes to my mind because of recent history and because I'm a homer is, of course, UNC men's basketball. Everyone's probably tired of me talking about that, but anyway. So Clemson men's basketball has a horrific record against the UNC men's basketball program in general. I think we saw that the winning percentage was like 15% in the series history.
Yeah.
Clemson, that's the percentage of games Clemson has won. But the truly outstanding record is that since 1952, when they first played, Clemson has only beaten Chapel Hill once. That was last year. So my theory is that Clemson finally getting over that hump and beating UNC in Chapel Hill for the first time ever is really what caused Roy Williams' retirement. Thoughts?
Definitely signals the end, right? You lose for the first time to Clemson. You got to go. Yeah, for sure. It's weird. How does that even happen? How do you go that long?
Bad.
How do you go that long without winning many games at all? Period.
That's bad.
15%
winning percentage is
153. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, if you get to be a homer, I get to be a homer because NC State stuff is clearly a thing. I don't know what brought it on. I don't know if it's like some Indian burial ground situation or what have you. But it's clearly a thing, whether it is leads getting blown in absolutely weird ways or just knowing that it's going to happen. Like, maybe not a real curse, but it very much is a Boston Red Sox. Not on that level because it's not professional sports. I get that. But definitely is a thing where, like, things happen and everybody collectively understands that things are happening and that this is going poorly. I think maybe the football team has broken that by crushing North Carolina in a weird way this season. But all that is to say that they're going to go like 2-10 with the football team they have returning next year. Like, it just has to, because even when the baseball team is good, they go to Omaha and look great. The prospects of a national championship in baseball look amazing, and then everybody gets COVID and they got to shut it down. So NC State stuff is a thing. I think it's probably somebody cursed the General Assembly and the Board of Governors for nuking the athletic programs in the 90s. But yeah, definitely a thing.
I was pulling for State, by the way, on the record. I was pulling for State in the College World Series, and I was a little heartbroken. And that might be the first ever time that I have been like really pulling for an NC State team. So I'm like, we both live in the area, and so it's hard to like live around this much pity all the time. I just want the curse to be broken. Like, let them win. Somebody let them win something, so this thing will just go away, and we can stop talking about it.
It's coming. 15-0 national champions. It's coming.
I'd be in the streets with you. if they go 15-0 and win a national championship, we'll go downtown together. Deal?
January 9th, 2023, or whatever day the national championship game is on, a comet's going to hit the earth.
Don't look up, right?
Don't look up. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to Buffalo. We're going to go back and forth to tell you some of these. You can't even believe some of them actually happened, but they definitely did. I'm going to first tell you about their early NFL teams. So long before the Bills were there. I don't know if we have any listeners in Buffalo, but if you are there, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. It's fine. You'll get one too one day, just like NC State. Anyway, no, okay.
No.
The early NFL teams in Buffalo. All right, they're okay. We're gonna go through some of these pretty fast, so it's gonna be quick. Hold on to your hats. There's a lot of them. We have to declare all the names for the record. Okay. From 1915 to 1917, these are the most prominent ones, and this is like a 15-year stretch, by the way, where they changed names probably 10 times. You can count at home if you're paying that much attention. From 1915 to 1917, they were the Buffalo All-Stars. They had some success. They ended up in 1917 going barnstorming against Midwest professional teams. Had a decent record, but unfortunately after 1917, the flu pandemic struck the United States and elsewhere, and they were unable to continue their operations. They had to close down shop because nobody could leave the city. That was just the rules because of the flu pandemic, which again, history repeats itself, folks. What we're doing now is not new. Not the first time. Anyway, after 1918, or during 1918, I should say, they became the Buffalo Niagaras. They changed names again. They changed ownership. They went undefeated in 1918. Undefeated, 6-0, undefeated. But it's because they played only other football teams in the city of Buffalo because they still couldn't leave. Okay? But they won the, quote, citywide championship. If that means anything to anyone, probably not. But they apparently won that.
Being the best team in Buffalo is like being the prettiest girl in Alabama. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Just kidding. It's like being the best. It's like being the best reader in Alabama. That's a better. Kidding. We love the people of Alabama. All our listeners in Alabama, you're our favorite.
We are full of it, y'all. I told y'all to hang on to your hats. In 1919, they become the Buffalo Prospects. Now, the only games they played that year was a Thanksgiving weekend tournament. They went 2-0. They played 2 games, won both. And they won the, quote, New York Professional Football League title. So by this time, I guess they could leave the city of Buffalo. But they won 2 games, and they won this unofficial title. Here's where we get fun. 1920, they become the Buffalo All-Americans. You might be, if you're familiar with any old Buffalo football history, this is going to be it. They were the All-Americans from 1920 to 1923. They were the first Buffalo team to play in the NFL, but maybe they weren't because the owner at the time said that they were part of the NFL, but records may indicate that they may not have joined the American Professional Football Association until the following year. Okay, so they may not have actually been an NFL team until 1921. We'll let the historians decide on that one. They finished the 1920 season, though, with a record of 9-1-1. And by the way, if there's anything I got out of researching these early football teams, ties were incredibly common. Like, it's funny how, like, 10 years ago, we had the first regular season NFL tie after the first overtime, and no one knew the rules. Everyone was ready to keep going. I think it was like Eagles-Steelers or some Northeastern matchup. And everybody was ready to go to double overtime, and the refs called the end of the game, and everyone was confused. We don't tie nearly as much as they did back then, and these records will explain that a little bit. But they finished the 1920 season 9-1-1, 9 wins, 1 loss, 1 tie. The Akron Pros, the professional football team in Akron, had the best record in the league of 8-0-3. So 3 ties, but no losses. And the Decatur Staleys finished 10-1-2. So a league meeting had to be called to decide the champion that season. And they ended up awarding the Akron Pros what was known in 1920 as the Brunswick Balk Colander Cup. Okay. 1920 was the first and only time this trophy would be awarded. And then the trophy disappeared. No one knows what happened to it. And it wasn't until like 2019 that the NFL even found the only remaining picture of it when they were reviewing film for their century celebration. They were like looking at old footage and old photographs and stuff of NFL history, and they came across a picture of this random trophy that was awarded to the Akron Pros in 1920. And then there's no written history of this trophy at all. It's kind of creepy. Someone tossed it in a river or something. I don't know. Tossed it over the Niagara Falls or something. I don't know what happened. But the All-Americans had something to say about this because the association president at the time, Jim Thorpe, and the vice president of the association at the time, Stan Kofall, weren't present at this association meeting to vote. And so the Pros owner, Art Rainey, presided over the meeting, and a vote decided that the Akron Pros were the rightful winners of the championship. Now, they were the only team without a loss, so that is a little hard to contest when you have one loss and the team beside you has none. So that's how that one was decided, okay? If that one's weird, it's going to get worse.
But did they pass the eye test? That's what I want to know. Did they pass the eye test? Was the committee able to decide whether or not they were the best-looking team?
The quarterback had arm talent. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Great arm talent. Anyway. So in 1921, we have a situation known as the Staley Swindle, okay? So in 1921, the All-Americans finished with a record of 9-0-2. Undefeated, 9 wins, 2 ties, no losses, okay? The All-Americans owner, Frank McNeil, then, after those 11 games, scheduled 2 exhibition games. They went to Akron on a train, played the Akron Pros, beat them pretty handedly, took an overnight train to go play the Chicago Staleys the next day. They played them back to professional football games on back-to-back days, okay? They beat the Pros, but they lose pretty handedly to the Staleys, the Chicago Staleys, which is kind of to be expected, right? You play 2 professional football games on back-to-back days. But remember, according to owner Frank McNeil, these were exhibition games. These didn't count for anything. Okay, just keep that in mind as we go forward. The All-Americans claim that the last 2 games didn't count, but the Chicago Staleys claim that the aggregate score of the 2 games that they did play against each other, one in the what the All-Americans consider the regular season, and then what the All-Americans considered an exhibition postseason game, ? The Staleys outscored them in the 2 games combined. And apparently there was a generally accepted rule at the time that the second game played against 2 teams mattered more than the first. If that makes sense. So, again, the AFPA's executive committee had to come to a vote, and they gave the title to the Chicago Staleys. Even though the owner of the All-Americans, Frank McNeil, said that these last 2 games were exhibition games, everyone else took them seriously. Everyone else took them as regular season games, and the All-Americans finished with a loss. Technically tied with the Chicago Staleys, which is why it came to a vote, and everyone decided the Staleys were the rightful champion. So, kind of screwed themselves on that one, but it's unfortunate because that might be the closest that might be the closest they ever could have gotten. But redemption's coming. Quick last few.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bisons, 1924-1925. In 1924, they finished 6-5 due to injuries and retirements. They were never the same again. Last winning record they would have. The Buffalo Rangers came along in 1926. They fielded an exhibition team of players from Texas and the Southwest United States. They ended up going 4-4-2. Back to the Bisons in 1927. The season was suspended after 5 games, which they lost every one of. They didn't finish the season. 1928, they didn't field a team. Buffalo did not have a professional football team in 1928. The Bisons came back in 1929. They lost every game that season except the last one against the former Chicago Staleys, now the Chicago Bears, in their final game of existence. So in a little bit of a full circle moment, the team that spoiled their undefeated, quote unquote, undefeated season in 1921 was the final win in the Buffalo Bisons / Rangers and All-Americans and all the other teams' history. A little bit of hope, but not. It probably doesn't sit well in Buffalo, if you ask me.
A little bit of hope, but no actual substance is going to be the story of Buffalo sports the further we get into this, for sure. I tell you one thing that stands out to me about this whole situation, whether it's the All-Stars or the Niagaras or the Prospects or whoever, all of those names, all better than the Commanders.
He's salty
anyway,
if you can't tell.
All better names.
That's moving forward.
All right, so the next couple of parts of Buffalo sports history all kind of happen around the same time. Chronologically, though, the next team to get its start is still in football, and it's the Buffalo Bills, who begin their existence as a charter member of the American Football League in 1960. Now, going against the grain of the usual outcome of Buffalo sports seasons, they did win back-to-back titles in 1964 and 1965. But this was really before the AFL was truly established as competition for the NFL. The TV deal with NBC that made the AFL financially viable and able to compete with the salaries in the NFL at least a little bit happened in 1964. So it's not like the TV money came in, they started raiding the NFL for players. Keep in mind that the first Super Bowl was a giant blowout in favor of the NFL. And when the Jets finally won a Super Bowl, it was looked at as a gigantic upset. And that was years after these two titles. So it's not like this is the top level of football. It's positioning itself to be, but they didn't actually win that situation. In a bit of the curse foreshadowing, they were in a third straight AFL title game in 1966, which would have put them in Super Bowl I, but they lost it to the Chiefs, who ended up getting blown out in Super Bowl I.
Does that sound familiar, though? Chiefs
Bills.
Like real recent history? Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Now, one of the origin stories of this curse is from the owner of the Bills, Ralph Wilson. Allegedly, he cared more about financial success than football success. And you can't blame him. He's the person that's on the hook for all this money. I get it. But according to some folks, it's karma coming back. Now, O.J. Simpson once said, this is a quote from O.J. Simpson quoting Ralph Wilson, he was supposed to have said, what would a championship do me? All that means is everybody else wants a raise. So that's the way he looks at winning. Now, O.J. Simpson, questionable credibility.
To say the least.
Just kidding, O.J. If you hear this, don't hold me up in a hotel room. I don't have any of your memorabilia. Please just calm down. It'll be okay. But that's allegedly the story. And we don't want to completely besmirch Ralph Wilson. He, as an owner in the AFL, routinely loaned other owners in that league money to keep them afloat so that the league would continue to operate. Fun fact, trivia, the AFL is the only professional league in American professional sports history in which no teams folded. So, to his credit, he was that.
Thank you, Ralph Wilson.
Yeah. By the time that they joined the NFL in the 70s, they didn't make the NFL playoffs until 1974. That was with the Electric Company, which was O.J. Simpson, the Juice, and his offensive line, who provided the juice. Right? Get it? Metaphors. Gotta love it. But by the mid-'80s, the whole team's future was in doubt. They had just built a new stadium that seats 80,000 people, but attendance had dropped to 30,000 people per game. They were routinely losing out on players to the new USFL, which was a league that had plenty of money and was raiding NFL talent at the time, mostly because of Wilson's stinginess. He wasn't willing to pay what the USFL team was willing to pay. So when they drafted the same players, the players chose the USFL deal. By the mid-'80s, Wilson was fielding offers from other cities, Tampa, Memphis, and Houston among them, for moving the franchise. But bright spots. Can't have a curse without feeling good about yourself. What taketh giveth away. It's the reverse of the old quote. When the USFL does fold, the Bills are able to obtain general manager Bill Polian, head coach Marv Levy, quarterback Jim Kelly, all from that league. They quickly add through drafting Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, and Thurman Thomas, and become some version of a dynasty light in the weirdest situation anybody's ever seen in terms of professional sports championships. Here's the deal that this team goes on. The run that the team goes on, by the time at the end of it hits, it's not all the same players. But from 1988 to 1999, over 12 seasons, they make 10 playoff appearances. They win the division 6 times, all in the first 8 years. So 6 out of the first 8 years, they're the division champion. And they go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. The only team to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Now, most of our folks listening to this know about these games, but the first appearance is the famous Scott Norwood wide right game, where against the Giants, a team that they'd beat in the regular season, they need a kick, a made kick at the end of the game, and the kicker misses. The second appearance was a blowout to the Washington Redskins. Shout out. The third appearance featured their playoff run, featured the greatest comeback in NFL history. And that's not hyperbole. It's true. They were down 35-3 to the Oilers in the third quarter of their first round matchup. Their backup quarterback, Frank Reich, not Jim Kelly, but Frank Reich, led them back to an overtime win against the Oilers, 41-38, only to go to the Super Bowl and commit 9 turnovers, which is also an NFL record, or at least a Super Bowl record, against the Cowboys. So they bookended their playoff appearance that year with 2 records. Their fourth appearance was another L to the Cowboys back when the NFC East ruled the NFL. And their 1999 playoff appearance, the last one of that run, that was also memorable. In that game, Rob Johnson, many people don't remember him, was awarded the start over Doug Flutie, who had won 10 games and got them to the playoffs in the first place. And their opponent, the same franchise that they had embarrassed with that big comeback, the Tennessee Titans, who had moved from Houston to Nashville. In that game is the Music City Miracle, the famous kickoff return with the throwback all the way across the field and Kevin Dyson sprinting into the end zone. So they got, talk about redemption, that's reverse redemption. It's redemption the other way. That loss was the last playoff appearance for the next 18 seasons. 18 years of futility followed up that playoff run of kind of excellence, but not, right? Because they didn't win the title, but it was really awesome. Nobody's ever done that. By the time they did make the playoffs in 2017, they were the last team in the Big Four sports leagues to make the playoffs in the 21st century.
That's crazy.
That's how long they were the last ones to do it. And then most recently for our Bills fans, they had 13 seconds and the lead against the Kansas City.
I think it's still too early to talk about this.
Against the Kansas City Chiefs. And in a back and forth game, feel how you want to about the OT rules in the NFL, but in a back and forth game, it ended up being a back and back game. And the Chiefs got 2 possessions in a row based on the coin flip and won. So that's sad for them. They have the most conference titles without a Super Bowl win in NFL history, tied with the Vikings. One side note about those 4 appearances and 4 losses in the Super Bowl. They were 14-2 against the NFC in the regular season those 4 years, and 0-4 in the playoffs. So, sounds like a curse to me. That's not something you would expect. Those numbers never regress to the mean.
It's like Clemson and Carolina. It's like, for some reason, it's just something about those teams, something about where they played, and again, everybody probably knows the 4, but the Vikings, I recently learned the Vikings in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, went to 3 out of 4 Super Bowls in a 4-year stretch. They went to 3 and lost, and went to one like a few years prior and lost that one. So that's also less talked about, but still a very interesting one.
Indeed. So, yeah, I think the football history, at least in Buffalo, is a little cursed.
Yeah, that is tough.
All right, we're gonna pause here in the middle of our story for a little trivia. It's a little trivia. Coming up is our history of the Buffalo Sabres. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I want you to tell me. Are you ready for this question? Are you ready for it?
We'll do it. We'll do it.
All right. So I don't want to give it away. Anyway, all right. So I won't narrow it down. I won't narrow it down too much. All right.
Do it.
I want you to tell me, and it's going to be relevant. It's going to be relevant to one of these stories, but I want you to tell me, you got to figure out the last, I mentioned the AFL had no teams fold, right? So I want you to tell me the last Big Four, so NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, the last Big Four franchise that folded. What franchise was the last one to just completely shut the doors and go home?
Last. All right. So in recent, I'm like running through my Rolodex, and in recent memory, I can't think, like, within my lifetime. I don't, unless one happened in my lifetime early on and I don't remember. All right. So how do I narrow this down? Which of the 4 leagues, did this team play in?
All right, so I'm glad that's your first question because I almost gave it away when I was introing the trivia, right? So they are from the NHL. We're going to mention them in the Sabres story, and I accidentally said that before we started.
No,
so you didn't catch it. You didn't catch it, so it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, they are an NHL team.
NHL team. Okay.
Yes. And you were correct. It wasn't a question, but it was not in your lifetime.
We'll count that as 2. All right, so I'm going to have a problem very soon in knowing NHL teams that folded before I was born. Just going to go ahead and throw that out there. So if I don't know, oh man, I don't even know what else to. I don't even know what else to say. Like, because if I just asked what city it was in, that wouldn't tell me the nickname. Like, I probably wouldn't even know the nickname.
That's fair. You would have. There are some questions you could ask to get to the nickname.
Oh man. Are any other professionals? Do any other professional sports teams, current ones, have this nickname?
Okay, so because you've asked, are there any professional sports teams that have that nickname? The answer to that question in the general is yes. However, to save you from wasting a question to clarify that, the team that has this same nickname is a minor league professional sports team.
Oh, a minor league professional sports team. That actually, that raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah, it actually opens up a lot of nicknames. And the thing they all have in common is that they're still all better than Commanders.
Fair enough. Okay. What? Is there a current NHL team that plays in this city?
There's not a current NHL team in the city.
Is there a? Oh man, is there a current Big Four team? Are there any? Is it a city that hosts any other professional sports teams?
All 3 of the other professional sports have teams in this city.
Oh my goodness!
I think we're at 4. We might be at 5. Who's counting? No one's actually counting.
I'm
there are no rules to this game.
Okay, so There's no NHL team there. The city has three of the big four teams. The nickname is held by. Okay, so what sport is the minor league? What sport is the minor league team?
The nickname belongs to a minor league baseball team.
Oh, that doesn't help at all.
I think we're at six.
That doesn't help at all. What city is that minor league baseball team in?
Okay, that's a good one.
I still might not know this either, but
no, this is. I think you'll be able to do this. The minor league baseball team plays in Birmingham, Alabama.
The Birmingham starts with a B. Shoot!
It does start with shoot. Doesn't start with a shoot. Doesn't start with a B.
It's not the
team name
Birmingham
does.
Shoots. I feel like I could sit here and just turn my brain on this. I might not come up with it. Okay. I'm gonna hold on to that.
Everybody listening is like, "Oh my god, dude!"
The Barons, the Birmingham Barons.
Okay, they are. Yes. So the nickname is the Barons.
Oh, okay. All right. So, but what city were they in? How do I do that? Oh man. If I just ask for the city, that's going to be weird.
Yeah, you can't just you can't just do that.
I'm going to give it away. The other, I could ask for the other team names. That would give it away pretty easily too, though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make this fun. I don't want to just be.
You got two more questions.
What year did it fold?
It folded in in 1978 after the 1978 NHL seasons.
I don't know why I asked that because that's not going to help me at all. One more question.
I can give you a hint.
Hints are cool. Yeah.
Okay,
so I'll take a hint that might help for
so Barons, right? Birmingham Barons, famously the team that Michael Jordan played for. The city that you're looking for is famous for housing the current most compared player to Michael Jordan. Not his current home, but his most famous home.
So comparing Jordan to LeBron would mean they were the Cleveland. They're not the Akron Barons, I assume. So they're the Cleveland Barons?
They're the Cleveland Barons. The Cleveland Barons were established in 1967 as the California Seals, became the Oakland Seals, and then again the California Golden Seals before moving to Cleveland in 1976. They ceased operations in 1978. They technically merged with the Minnesota North Stars, who became the Dallas Stars, but they are the last team to cease operations in the Big Four major sports in America. There you go. You got it. Cleveland Barons.
Ooh, that was tough.
That's a tough one.
That was fun, but that was tough. All right.
Tough one.
So moving forward, I'm going to tell you about the one time, most recent time anyway, that there was an NBA team in Buffalo. They were known as the Buffalo Braves. They were awarded by the league in 1970. I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers were also brought into the fold at this point. The Houston Rockets were supposed to be able to be brought into the fold, but that folded. They ended up joining the league the next year. And then one other team I can't remember. But anyway, 1970, they were actually, we are going to talk about the Sabres in a bit, and the Braves were actually the third choice for scheduling in the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. So for scheduling home games. So they had the Buffalo Braves, they had the Buffalo Sabres, and then they had Canisius College. The College and the Sabres both had pick for home games over the Braves. Okay, this forced the Buffalo Braves to play many regular season, quote unquote, regular season home games in Toronto. That's not the last time that would happen either. Back and forth between Toronto and Buffalo, but we'll get there in a little bit. The team was originally owned by a New York investment firm, and the NBA took over the Buffalo Braves franchise before a preseason game was even played. Before the regular season started, though, Paul Snyder bought the team for just $4 million. Okay. Right after this, not long after that happened, Snyder tried selling the Buffalo Braves to a man named Irving Cowan, who wanted to move the team from Buffalo to Miami. The city of Buffalo sued because they had an interest in the team being there, and they ended up winning. And the team signed a 15-year lease to play home games at the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium. Well, there was a caveat in the lease, and that caveat to break the lease, if they ever wanted to leave, was that the team could not sell 5,000 season tickets. So if the team failed to sell 5,000 season tickets, they would void the lease. So John Brown Jr. would eventually buy 50% of the franchise and then bought the rest. Well, John Brown is from California. Okay. And so immediately he started looking for ways to get the team out of Buffalo and move to California. Overt attempts to ruin the team. They were trading the best players away, for one thing. They had decent players at one time, and they just started trading them away on purpose. Again, history repeats itself. And ownership drew less fans because you were getting rid of all your best players, right? Eventually, and David Stern, being an attorney at one point, before he became the commissioner in 1980? He was just an attorney at this point. He also had a hand in this whole debacle. And eventually they start selling less than 5,000 season tickets per season because they didn't have anyone there. They just didn't have any decent players. And now they ended up working out a swap. So John Brown, who was the owner of the Braves, the short-term owner of the Braves, and Irv Levin, who owned the Boston Celtics at the time, they decided to just swap teams. Irv Levin actually is, I misspoke earlier, Irv Levin is actually the one who wanted the team to go to California, not John Brown. But Irv Levin wanted a team in California because that's where he was from, and he knew the league would not allow them to move the Boston Celtics, one of the premier NBA teams, from Boston to California. So he had to figure out a way to become the owner of a team who the NBA would agree to let him move. And so they swapped teams, knowing the league wouldn't let him move the Celtics. And Levin ended up taking over the Braves. He moved them to San Diego. So they went from being the Buffalo Braves to the San Diego Clippers. And then not long after that, moved them from San Diego to LA, their current home. And so just another example of the curse that is having a professional sports team in Buffalo. Like, they just can't survive. They just can't. Ownership's out to get them. Leagues are out to get them. Bad weather. Like, man.
The Clippers carried that curse with them to LA.
That's the funny part, is they still haven't won. It's the same franchise, and they still can't win, even in LA.
They took that with them. Well, if you thought potential relocations and ownership issues and just general failure stopped with the Bills and the Clippers, you're wrong. Because in 1970, the same year that the Bills joined the NFL from the AFL, and the same year that the Braves joined the NBA, the NHL awarded Buffalo the Sabres. They joined with the Vancouver Canucks in the second wave of NHL expansion as teams number 13 and 14. Now, the ownership group in Buffalo had trouble securing the team in the first place. They tried to get an expansion bid in the first wave of 6 that had happened just a few years before, but Pittsburgh beat them out for that. They became the Penguins. They also weren't allowed to buy the Oakland Seals. That's where they fit in with the story. They weren't allowed to buy that franchise when they were looking to move to Cleveland, which ends up being okay. They would go defunct. And so they finally get to join the NHL in 1970, and they get a stroke of luck early. The NHL staged basically a Wheel of Fortune-like contest for the number one pick that year between the Canucks and the Sabres. There were 20 numbers on a wheel. The Canucks had 1 through 10. The Sabres had 11 through 20. They spun it, and it landed on 11. Now, apparently nobody in the room could read because NHL commissioner, he went to congratulate the ownership group from Vancouver, but had to be pointed out that it was 11 and not 1. So Buffalo gets the number one pick either way.
Like you wanted them to lose.
And they get Gilbert Perreault, who in the juniors was the clear standout. He won Rookie of the Year his first year. He's a Hall of Famer. His 38 rookie goals were the most of all time until the next season when they took Rick Martin, not Ricky Martin. We're not living La Vida Loca, right? But Rick Martin the next year, who broke Perreault's record for rookie goals. They got the two highest scoring goal scoring players as rookies on the same team at the same time. And that group gets labeled as the French Connection. They quickly, in expansion terms, now not like Vegas Golden Knights quick, but quickly in expansion terms, get good. And they won the Wales Conference, which is the way we would think of divisions. And they appeared in a Stanley Cup. By 1980, they were the first team, not the Miracle on Ice. These Buffalo Sabres were the first team to beat the Russian Olympic team. Right? That's how good they are. But they couldn't win a Stanley Cup.
Unfortunate.
Fun fact, they did play a game in the fog. It was enormously hot outside one day, and obviously there's ice inside the building, but the building itself was not air conditioned. So there was a tremendous amount of fog inside the building, to the point where if you were not very close to the ice, you couldn't see anything. Like spectators had no view of the action at all. In that same game, one of the players had to kill a bat that was flying around in the arena. Like just smacked him out of the air. Just kapow,
Manu
right?
Ginobili
So
in the house.
that could be, hey, look, maybe this is another source of the curse. Who knows? You probably shouldn't kill bats. It's got to be some omen there. And the team goes on a losing spell after that. But again, hope. Enter the Dominator. The legendary goalie Dominik Hasek joined the team in the 90s. And in 1993, they won their first playoff series in over 10 years. But they would lose in the next round. All that hope in the next round, not even like they just got blown out in 4 games. They lost in a sweep. All 4 games were 4-3. And the last 3 games were overtime losses. 4-3.
No. So 3-3, 3 straight times. Oh,
yep. And you lose in a sweep. 1 goal away every game. In 1994, the next year, Dominik Hasek faces fellow all-time great Martin Brodeur. And in the first game of that playoff series, it's the longest game in Buffalo Sabre history. It's 4 overtimes. And in typical Hasek versus Brodeur fashion, it's 1-0 is the decision. 1 goal in over 2 games worth of hockey. Hasek won that game. He won the goalie battle. And then the Sabres lost the series in 7 games.
This is almost comical. I'm sorry. This is almost comical at this point. I told you might not believe it all, but
the Sabres story is where all this comes. Like it boils to a head. By 1997, we've seen ownership issues to this point, but by 1997, the ownership was so bad that the team actually almost missed payroll. They almost became the last team to shut the doors in Big Four professional sports history. But 1998, 1999 was their year. In the playoffs, they They upset number 2 seed Ottawa in the first round, and then they got bracket luck. They got to face the number 6 seed and the number 4 seed on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they met the Dallas Stars, the winners of the President's Trophy, the best record in the NHL that season. They get to Game 6. They're down 3-2, but it's Game 6. Still anybody's series, win 6. Game 7 is 50-50. Anybody's got a shot. So you just got to win a game to have a chance. And they play well. Game goes to 3 overtimes. And in the third overtime, all-time great Brett Hull scores a goal that is one of the most controversial goals that maybe kind of sort of was probably illegal. According to the rules at the time, a scorer, a on-ice player, could not have their skate inside the goalie crease before the puck entered the goalie crease. That's the way they defined goalie interference. Well, Brett Hull shoots a puck. It bounces off of Hasek, who makes the save. It does not go directly back to Brett Hull. It kind of bounces around for a second, but then finds its way back to Hull's stick, except Hull is standing in the crease by this point, and he puts it in the net. According to the letter of the law, that's an illegal goal because the puck came out of the crease, his foot went in, then the puck went back in. But the officials maintained that it was all the same possession, so it counts. If you ask people in Buffalo, I'm sure they'd be ready to fight you about this very situation. Their best chance at winning a championship lost to a blown call. That definitely feels like NC State stuff parallel to me.
Yeah, that's Buffalo stuff right there.
That is. In 2002, their new owner, John Rigas, was indicted on bank wire and securities fraud, and the team had to go under NHL control, just like the original Braves had to go under NBA control. And so that's not great because that limits what the team can do. They can't add salary. They can only make little changes here and there. But by 2005 through 2007, they're good again. They won the most games in franchise history in 2006-07, and they won the President's Trophy. But in 05-06, they run into a team of destiny while being plagued by injury. The Carolina Hurricanes.
Had to plug that.
Oh, yeah. Let's go Canes. And in 2007, despite winning the President's Trophy, they lose in the Eastern Conference Final for the second straight year. Unfortunately, that was the last bright spot for them. Blight spot kind of is the history of the team's injury. They have currently, as we speak right now, they have missed the playoffs every year since 2011. And given their current record, most assuredly will miss the playoffs again this year, which will break the NHL record for most consecutive seasons without a playoff appearance. It's very easy to make the playoffs in the NHL. It's over half the teams, just like it is in the NBA. So long playoff droughts aren't normal. Theirs will be the longest ever this year, and it's virtually guaranteed. And along with their expansion brethren, the Vancouver Canucks, they are the two oldest teams in the league with no Stanley Cup championships. So it's got the trifecta. It's got ownership problems. It's got no wins. And it's got a historically long playoff drought thrown in for good measure.
See, like you just can't make this up. You really just can't make this up. And the curse extends to teams who are just affiliated with Buffalo teams, like the Blue Jays. During COVID in 2020, during the 2020 season, they ended up playing the regular season, or at least some of it in Buffalo.
Yeah. To
be in the United States. But they during that season they made their third postseason appearance in 7 years, but they ended up getting swept by Tampa, who was the top seed. Neither of us can talk. You can tell this is almost over, right? but Toronto is getting some of the. It seemed to be getting some of that curse from Buffalo just because they're near neighbors. Maybe the Braves put it on them a long time ago, and this is just it showing its head out.
So the last bit of this story are the exceptions that prove the rule. The couple of times where the curse maybe wasn't paying attention, or it just wanted to let the good folks of Buffalo have a chance. But it's a little bit different in this section. There are some championships from the city of Buffalo. For instance, the Buffalo Bandits of the National Lacrosse League have won 4 titles in that and its earlier iterations. That's the premier lacrosse league in the world. But lacrosse isn't one of our biggest sports. So not to take anything away from that championship or the players in those leagues, but it's not like an attention-grabbing thing. Sure. Similarly, the Buffalo Bisons of the AAA, and I'm still going to call it the International League. I don't care that Major League Baseball came up with stupid names for all the minor leagues because they're stupid, but it's the International League. They've won 3 titles. The AAA East, shut up. That's dumb.
That doesn't work.
The Buffalo Bisons are 3 times International League champions, but that's minor league players. Right? They're using players that a major league team is assigned to them. It's not quite the same. The Buffalo Buttes of the National Women's Hockey League won a title in 2017. That is the first league in the history of the world to pay women players to play hockey. But sometimes we don't consider hockey one of the big sports in America. So women's hockey on the up, but not at the level of the curse where we're mentioning. And y'all know we like to end episodes with a nice little chef kiss full circle. And so we have one here for you too, Dale. The teams that aren't quite at that top level, the one that kind of is the Western New York Dash. They have 4 titles in 4 different women's soccer leagues, including the NWSL, which is a sport. Women's soccer is a sport that is played in multiple countries in the world at a very high level. I know our women's national team is really good, but not a guaranteed winner every time they take the pitch. They won in the NWSL. It's the premier women's league in the world. They won a championship, right? Go Buffalo. Everything's great. We broke the curse. They won back-to-back titles and then sold the team to a businessman in North Carolina, and they became the North Carolina Courage, where they would go on to win another 2 titles. So even when it goes good, it goes bad for the citizens of Buffalo in professional sports.
Hey, and you can't blame us. Like, we're in North Carolina, right? But this isn't why we said this. We're not. They are our home team, but
we had
nothing to do with it. We had nothing to do with it
at all. Yeah. We didn't throw that in just because they moved here. But it's not a franchise, right? It's not the Boston Red Sox that lose all the time while the Celtics are right down the street, and the Bruins are right there. Right? It's not that. It's not even Cleveland, where everybody is like, "Oh, that's so sad. You guys never win at anything ever. This is adorable." Like, nobody talks about Buffalo being a cursed city that can't win anything. But it is. So, like, you're cursed and not even famous for it. That's another level. Like there are cursed franchises, there are cursed cities, but man, Buffalo, I feel for the people of Buffalo. I feel for the people of Buffalo.
If you know of any Buffalo curses, it's the Bills, right? It's always the Bills because of the 4 Super Bowl losses. But no one talks about the Sabres having the longest NHL drought, the playoff drought, and being tied for the oldest team in the NHL for winning nothing, and hosting an NBA team for 9 years that basically for its entirety was unstable and insecure, and was the league and owners and all that was just dying to get it out of there. And it's like incredible. And it goes all the way back to like the origins of the NFL, because the teams back then were getting, quote unquote, if you ask somebody in Buffalo, the teams back then were getting screwed. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I don't know. Josh Allen, raise up. That's the only thing. Like, that's your saving grace. That's who's got to do it. If he doesn't do it, I don't know.
Hard to tell. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this story of a curse. We're gonna have some more coming for you down the pipe, so look for that in the title of the episodes. You'll see curses, and you'll know it's one that's coming up. If you've got another idea, if you got a story you want to hear or share with us, be sure to hit us up on social media and let us know that. And we appreciate you listening. And we'll see you next time.
Love you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of What You Don't Know About Sports. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review, 5 stars only please, and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. If you have a great sports story, we want to hear about it. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WYDKAS Podcast, and on our YouTube channel at What You Don't Know About Sports Podcast. All episodes are written, recorded, and edited by us. Stay tuned for the next episode.